Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for the ORION webinar, Getting on Board with Hosted Video Solutions. We'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation portion of the webinar, but if you'd like to submit a question, please do so at any time by using the Ask a Question feature located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We'll now go to Brad Gray at ORION. Off to you, Brad.
Welcome to our very first video webinar hosted by ORION and Resolve Collaboration Services. Today, we're going to be learning about video conferencing technology hosted in the cloud. Our presenter is Mike Levesque from Resolve. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Brad.
Can everyone see Michael all right? If you're having technical difficulties or have any questions throughout this webinar, please post your questions on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, as Michael mentioned. So here's an overview of our hour together. We're going to have a 40-minute presentation with Michael at Resolve, followed by a 10 to 15-minute Q&A at the end. And feel free to post any questions as mentioned throughout the webinar, and we'll get them during the Q&A session. Resolve is one of our many service partners at part of the ORION Nebula, which is a cloud-hosted network service for Ontario's research, education, and innovation communities. This collection of hosted services is seamlessly accessed over the ORION network throughout our connected institutions. Like a referral, these strategic partners provide their services via ORION directly to our members. ORION is really pleased to host this video webinar because we want to help ensure that your institution is leveraging your video conferencing technology to its full potential, which means you can deliver the best learning environment to your students and end users. There are several benefits of using a hosted video service over the ORION network, so without further ado, I will now pass it over to Michael.
Thanks very much, Brad. Appreciate the introduction, and pleased to be the first partner to kick off the ORION Lunch and Learn series. So to tell you a bit about myself, as mentioned, I'm Michael Levesque, and I'm the CEO of Resolve Collaboration Services. I've been the CEO for the past 10 years since I started Resolve, and I've personally been in the video conferencing industry for just over 17 years. I can tell you, in my 17 years, this is the most excited I've ever been about the technology. The rapid change in the way that the products are being designed, delivered, and used has created this incredible pace of change that's simply remarkable. And for a gearhead like myself, it's pretty exciting. It's a whole set of new toys to play with, and hope to share my passion with you today on these new technologies. So really, the agenda today, we're going to talk about these fundamental changes, and we're going to address the question in three parts, and that's what is ORION doing, what is Resolve doing, and what is Polycom doing to address this move to video collaboration in the cloud. So historically, video collaboration was very infrastructure heavy. You bought boxes, deployed them, installed them on campus, maybe split them up between a couple different campus locations, very hardware driven. Very much about on-premise, and you would buy it with a certain return on investment expected over a period of time. With a 5-year life cycle, you'd run the equipment, and then after that 5-year life cycle, you'd replace it, start over, and start a new cycle. And very much that rinse and repeat of buy, run, and return on investment and start over. Well, business applications that were very infrastructure heavy are all moving towards the cloud. And it's not unique to video collaboration, but this move to the cloud means that these days of large-scale infrastructure on-premise is quickly being replaced by new models of acquisition and purchasing for these solutions. This trend is being driven by the virtualization of products. Things that used to take dedicated hardware can now run on shared virtual environments. We're seeing new hosted players entering the market, meaning that for no upfront expense at all, you can get access to these services in a hosted environment. The biggest challenge of this, and the biggest change that sometimes takes wrapping your head around, is the fact that it's off-premise. And there are those who are a bit old school like me, and there's still a certain part that want to hang on to that, saying, well, it's not here, I can't feel it and touch it. What does that mean in the cloud? Where is it? And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that means to be in the cloud. What does that mean in terms of security and data integrity? And how we get over that hang up of it not necessarily being on campus or on premise where these boxes used to be. What we're seeing is that business applications in general are moving away from this very large scale infrastructure on premise into the cloud. And it's not just video collaboration that's doing this. We're seeing this in other applications like email, data storage, backup and recovery, all moving from traditional hardware infrastructure-based solutions into cloud solutions. So the first portion we're going to talk about is how Polycom is addressing the cloud. There's really three key points here, and that's first with the virtualization of their products, with the option for subscription-based pricing or purchasing, and transition programs for customers who currently have hardware to move into a virtual or subscription-based solution. So the first piece I'm going to touch on is the virtualization. The full suite from Polycom is now available as software. And this is the biggest change in the video conference industry from a company that was all about selling boxes, that now all of these solutions are available purely as software. They've transformed the product line so that it can now be deployed in virtual environments that are either owned by the client or from cloud service providers or on standard virtualization software. Polycom applications are now supported by VMware and Microsoft Hyper-V environments, which many institutions are already running, which means that you have that ability to leverage existing virtual environments that you may have deployed for other purposes, and now you can roll video collaboration onto those same virtual environments and reuse that same virtual environment, reducing the overall cost of deploying video collaboration. This virtualization and availability of the products as software means that you can still have your traditional buy and sell model of owning an asset. It's just that that asset is now software and you're not tied to a particular hardware. Previously, when you bought these solutions, you often became limited as the technology evolved by the hardware that you bought at the time you purchased it. And as is true in computers and tablets and all other devices, hardware very quickly gets outdated. So that ability now to buy it as software means that you're keeping pace with the rapid evolvement and development of these applications. And because it's software, it's very easily upgraded and isn't reliant on a particular hardware infrastructure that you bought at a particular time. It means you can also still take advantage of traditional return on investment models and acquisition models where you want to buy and own and leverage this in your environment. So the next piece from Polycom that I find kind of the most exciting is subscription-based. So this means no capital expense at all. You can get into this purely as a subscription-based. So it's now an operating expense versus a capital expense. With that, it means it's really flexible. So you can start with your needs today. You don't have to overbuy or over provision for where you think you're going to be in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. The subscription model allows you to add additional licenses at any time. So you can buy for your needs today, and as that need grows, you can add more capacity down the road. And it's simply a licensing, so it's very quick, easy, and simple to increase the capacity of your infrastructure. The flexible licensing means that you can deploy new models of using the service and that you're not tied on a one-to-one ratio of a particular service on a particular machine, and that you can have multiple instances of the same servers and used in different ways. So the third part that Polycom has is a transition plan for those customers who've invested in hardware-based solutions. And let's be realistic, 5 years ago, these solutions didn't exist the way they do today. But there are customers who invested and are looking to continue to get that return on investment that they made. So Polycom has some aggressive trade-in programs that recognize the value of the investment you've made in traditional hardware and transitions that into the either virtual or subscription-based options for those same products. Means that you can still recognize the value of what you put into that hardware and still recognize it going forward into cloud-based hosted solutions. So what does all this mean from Polycom? Well, it means that with this virtualization, there's an incredible flexibility and scalability. And I'm actually going to move to my whiteboard to give a couple examples of what this could look like. So with the Polycom licensing model now, you now have a server that's your licensing server. And so all of your capacity subscriptions are contained within this licensing server. This is the master controller of how you deploy your infrastructure. For an example, you can now create, and I'll use a collaboration server as an example. So I'm going to have a collaboration server here, and my licensing server will provision the licenses to that collaboration server. This collaboration server is a virtual instance running in a hosted environment. Now, maybe this is going to be used for an MBA program. And, they're maybe very weekend heavy with some moderate use throughout the week. And maybe you've got another project that's a research project. And they're more heavily focused during the week with some moderate use on the weekends. And so that we can create a second collaboration server. And this is the unique thing about the licensing program. You can install as many instances of the same program as you want. And now I can provision my licenses to both servers. And I can actually dynamically move those licenses back and forth between the two services. So I can say, okay, I know that on the weekends, the MBA program needs more capacity than they normally do, and I'm going to transfer my licenses up to that collaboration server. And then on Sunday night, we're going to move those licenses back to the research collaboration server and give them the capacity for the Monday to Friday. So this allows you to create on-demand solutions that address the needs of your organization based on actual usage patterns. Another good example would be if you've got a temporary project. And so we see many projects where this is going to be something that's going to run for 3 or 6 months, and they have some specific needs for collaboration services. Well, now you can turn up a collaboration server solely dedicated to that project, allocate licenses to that server, and then when the project ends in 3 or 6 months, you can simply remove that instance and return your licenses back to the pool. So it creates some really interesting models for how to consume and use these applications. So the other one that's very interesting that's coming with the licensing server is the ability for automated licensing transfer, or what we call follow the sun. I'll give the example of a company that has an office in North America and an office in, we'll say, Australia. And I may have a collaboration server located geographically in a cloud in each of these locations. So we get better performance for the people connecting from those locations. Now what I can do using my licensing server is I can set up rules that say, at 7 o'clock in North America, move my licenses to the Australian collaboration server. And then likewise, at 7 p.m. in Australia, I want you to move those licenses back to the North American collaboration server. What we call a follow the sun licensing model. One of the new things is being enabled by Polycom using this licensing server to dynamically move your licenses around as needed to different geographic or departmental agencies, where you need them, when you need them. It means you don't have to over-provision for those peak capacities in any one region. You've got the ability to maximize your investment in the subscription and licenses. So next up, we're going to talk about what is Orion doing to address this move to the cloud. Well, first and foremost, they're providing a quality of service network. Cloud services are only as good as the network over which they run. As one of the world's fastest broadband connections, Orion provides a private and reliable network platform for the delivery of high bandwidth applications like video. I like to give the example of a Ferrari, or a sports car. So with Polycom being a Ferrari, when you try to use that on the public internet without quality of service, it's like taking that car on a gravel road. Well, Orion is the racetrack. You can take that car in the environment it was designed to be used on and maximize it. You can throw off the reins and really use video collaboration at high bandwidth the way it was meant to be used. The other piece is that Orion is engaging Nebula partners like Resolve and Polycom to build and deliver these services native to the Orion network. So next up, I'm going to dive into what Resolve is doing and what we're addressing for this move to the cloud. First off, we've partnered with Orion. So we've partnered to be able to deliver these services on the high-speed quality of service network. Removes a lot of those traditional barriers for the entry into video collaboration and provides for a really optimal user experience. Next thing we've done is we built the platform. We've built the virtual environment native on the Orion network to deliver video collaboration in virtually any configuration. We've implemented the necessary server infrastructure to allow us to host these services in a secure and reliable environment. We're also working with other Nebula partners to provide the raw computing power needed to drive these services for organizations that may not have their own virtual environment. The big piece of what we're offering is the expertise to transition to the cloud. Resolve brings to the table the experience and expertise on how to transition into the cloud. We have the knowledge to work with your existing solutions and figure out the best and most effective way to move these services into a cloud environment. Because there are so many new ways to buy and implement video collaboration, we're really here to be your guide, to help you make sense of the different offerings, and we have the capability to help you evaluate the right fit of whether it's subscription versus software versus your own virtual environment versus a hosted virtual environment, and to help you make sense of all that and evaluate it, and evaluate the financial case of what makes the most sense for your organization. The next piece that Resolve offers is the hosted service. So we offer a fully hosted and managed video collaboration service, similar to what many other hosted video service companies are offering in the market, with the difference being that we're on the Orion network. So you get that private, secure network connection with the video collaboration services. Gives you the ability to deploy video for your organization without the need for a dedicated help desk. And by using our service, you get a service that's fully customized to your specific needs. We're also able to offer hybrid solutions. This is the last piece I want to talk about, is that it creates this incredibly flexible platform. And although we've commoditized, specific package offerings for the hosted video, we also have the raw building blocks for the video platform. So it means that we can sit down with you and design a solution from the ground up and pull in the elements that you need to complete a video solution. And that it's not an all or nothing proposition, that really much it's a big sandbox, and let us help you build that sandcastle you've always dreamed about. So I'd like to move back to the whiteboard for a minute here, and we're going to talk about some of these new solutions in the hybrid solution and what that could look like. And we'll also talk a bit about why you might want to do a hybrid solution. So let's have the example where you're using video collaboration in the cloud. So you're accessing a collaboration server to conduct video meetings, face-to-face, dialing in some boardrooms, desktops, whatever it might be, you're having your meetings. And the need comes up now for you to do recording of these conferences. But there's some concern about the security of that recording. Where's the recording? Who has access to it? Does that recording physically stay in Canada? Or does it go outside Canada to some other server somewhere else that you don't have visibility to? Well, in a hybrid solution, you can use the cloud services, and then we can put critical infrastructure, like the recording server, on campus at your location. Using the secure and private Orion network, we can link that recording server into the cloud services. So your meeting is conducted in real time in the cloud, but the recording actually gets recorded to a physical device on campus on your network. So you've got complete physical control of that recording and of content at all times. So you always know where it's at, who has access to it, and can, with surety tell the stakeholders where that data resides. So another example we'll look at is extending the capabilities of existing video infrastructure. So we'll go with the scenario where you may have a video conference bridge or collaboration server that you've already deployed on campus. And it's working well, you're using it, but you don't have the ability, for example, to have people come in from mobile clients. And you may want them to now be able to join from an iPad, from an Android, from a tablet, some other sort of device that you'd like to bring into the collaboration server. Well now, using a hybrid cloud model, we can again create that secure connection to your collaboration server that resides on campus and provide the front end to allow mobile clients to securely connect into your collaboration server. Allows you to extend the functionality of equipment that you have with new features or functions that you may not currently have available to you. One of the other options in this scenario is for overflow capacity. And you may have a certain fixed capacity on campus that you can support. Well, we can provide overflow capacity in the cloud of another collaboration server so that when you reach capacity, you can start funneling calls into the cloud server to give you burst capacity as needed when you're starting to exceed the capacity of what you have available currently. So that's just a couple examples of the hybrid models that are really introduced now with this new move to cloud. So we're going to talk a minute about security and what that means in a couple different aspects. So first off, we've deployed the infrastructure with industry best practices, and the physical equipment is actually located in one of the top tier data centers in Canada. So the physical security of the infrastructure is huge. We've implemented the industry best practices for securing the applications. We have the privacy and security of the ORION network. So these pieces really create a secure cloud that gives us actual visibility and assurity to say, this is where your video traffic is at. This is where this content resides. And unlike other cloud providers where you're not necessarily sure where your data is at, I can tell you exactly where your data is at. And a big piece of that is the fact that your data is always in Canada, and that we've deployed this in a purely Canadian environment in Canadian data centers so that we can maintain data sovereignty over these applications. Means that there are no touch points of our infrastructure that go into US or other countries, so that all of your conferencing and collaboration is governed by Canadian laws and jurisdiction. So overall, what does this all mean? Well, it means that there's new models of consumption for video as a service. There's options for no to low capital expenses to getting into video collaboration. The days of rack and stack collaboration are going quickly. They're not completely gone, but they're on their way. It means that fixed capacity is less of an issue, whereas when you bought a hardware-based system, you were limited by the capacity of that system. This move to cloud means that you have more options for increased capacity on demand and as needed and as you grow. Also means that you have access to more features, more services at a lower cost. So I see we've got some questions that have come in from the webinar, so we're going to take some time now to dive into some of those questions. And so I think we'll start off, and actually, sorry, I forgot to introduce our question moderator. And so I'm going to introduce Riyad Bacchus, who's our marketing manager, who's going to facilitate the Q&A session.
Good day, everyone. So we'll now open up the Q&A portion of the webinar, and we encourage you to submit your questions, and we'll answer them for you in real time. So one of the first questions that we got in is, how does this compare to other cloud offerings?
Yeah, and that's a good question because we're seeing a lot of companies in the market offering cloud-based video, different flavors, different offerings. How does this compare? Well, the first thing and the big differentiator is the fact that it's native to the ORION network, which is huge because it gives you that quality of service network that video collaboration thirsts for, and you really get that on the ORION network. Second, it's a purely Canadian-based offering. So we can offer, again, like I mentioned previously, that data integrity that this stays within Canada. It's not going outside of Canada. Thirdly, it's a more flexible approach. So although we have packaged solutions for the hosted solution, again, we have those building blocks, and that we can work with you to design the solution that's right for your organization. And it's not specifically about trying to fit you into a particular package. It's about designing the solution that's right for you.
Excellent. So, another question that came in. My budget currently is structured to be focused on capital expenses. We're a little averse to operating expenses. Which cloud licensing can depend on, ultimately? Yeah. How can you help me address this with my boss and or my budget?
Perfect. Yeah, and so that's what we mentioned with the Polycom thing, is that it is available as virtualized software. So in that model, it's not a subscription base. You're actually buying the application like you would have traditionally bought a server. You're now buying the software version of that server that you used to buy. And so you own that software. It's a one-time purchase. It's a capital expense, but it's being deployed in a virtual environment. So now rather than putting it on a dedicated server that you bought from Polycom, you can put it on your own server in a virtual environment. Or if you want, if you use a hosted virtual environment, which again, if you're looking at CapEx, you may not be looking at hosted virtual environments. You may have your own virtual environment. Certainly, video collaboration is not the only application looking for virtual environments. So I would suspect that many organizations have that virtual environment, would be able to now layer on video collaboration into that environment. And so it really does take away that hesitation of an operating versus a capital, that you can still buy this as a capital purchase and deploy it. What you gain with that buying it is that you still get this rapid upgrade path. So rather than being tied to legacy hardware, if you want to upgrade, it's now a software upgrade that is very simply and easily done, and isn't a hardware upgrade or what we call a forklift upgrade. It's all software based. So again, it still addresses that traditional of I want to own this, and we understand that, and can certainly help with that. And what might make sense is purchasing portions of it and then making the case to say, okay, there's a very small portion that we need this. And we're working with the university, for example, right now, that is this exact scenario. They want the collaboration server, they want to buy it, own it, have a 3-year return on investment, and it's done. But they'd like to bring in some mobile and web-based clients. They're never going to need more than 3 or 4 people at a time. So the case we've put forward is great. Let's transition your existing hardware bridge to a virtual collaboration bridge that you buy as software and deploy, and you're going to do a small hosted package that will tie in to that bridge that you own. So there'll be a small yearly cost, and we'll front end and give you all of these other features that you don't want to buy and support because you've only got a couple users. But we can front end that cloud piece to the infrastructure that you own. Hope that answers that.
Excellent. So we have another question coming in. So can this support classroom training?
Yes. So there's a number of ways that it can support that. Is that it does act as a virtual collaboration space where you can join and collaborate on demand. And then it can also be streamed out. So you can broadcast this to a larger audience who are not necessarily participating, but just want to watch what's happening in that classroom. It can also be recorded and archived for playback, so you've got that ability of a complete system of both the live and the archive.
Excellent. So another question. So how do I know if my existing video equipment is compatible and applicable to a hybrid solution?
Sure, and that's a good question because you've obviously made some investments there. And that's really where Resolve comes in, because we sit down with you, take inventory of what you have, figure out what pieces can be recycled if there's a desire, what's working, what's not working, and we can help build and design the solution that's right for you. And really that's a consultative process where we need to sit down and figure out what you do have and how do we leverage that with the new cloud offerings to get you the maximum value of what you have and where you want to go.
Excellent. So one more question coming in, and again we encourage you to submit your questions. Is there a demo available?
Yeah, so we're happy to provide a demo if you want to. Again, contact through Resolve, and again, we'll address the specific pieces that you're looking for, what you'd like to see, but absolutely we can provide a demo of basically everything we've talked about today, including the virtualization of the Polycom product. So if you want to try a collaboration server in the cloud, we can do that. We can spin you up a virtual collaboration server, give you the keys and say, go to town, give it a try, give it a whirl, and actually give you full access to using these products as you would in a full production environment.
Excellent. And my apologies, that was not the last question. Another question that came in. So, what if I don't have Polycom technology? Will my existing technology work?
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about Polycom is the infrastructure is designed to work interoperability with other manufacturers. So if you've got Cisco or Lifesize or any of those other products, we can certainly incorporate those into the solution. And although the core of the platform that we're driving is based on the Polycom Real Presence platform, the Real Presence platform is interoperable with all of the other manufacturers. And so we can certainly leverage, it's not a Polycom only solution, it just happens to be the core platform, but absolutely fully interoperable with any of the other manufacturers.
Excellent.
Again, if you've got any other questions, go ahead and fire them in. We'll just do a quick browse and see if anything else has.
And again, we're in real time, so feel free to just pop in your question.
Okay. So it looks like that's the last of the questions that come in. So again, I want to thank you very much, and I'll pass it back to Matt.
And again, thank you for all your questions. And now the Q&A portion is over, but again, that doesn't mean we will not further communicate with you. So if there's any questions that come to mind after the fact, we will be pushing out an exit survey shortly. But again, we will be also offering our emails, and any questions that come to mind, please feel free to contact us after the fact. So basically, we'll now put it over back to Brad, and he'll close off with some remarks. Thanks, Brad.
Well, thanks, Michael and Riyadh, and thanks to everyone attending this video webinar. And we really hope you've taken away some valuable video lessons here. This video has been recorded and will be available to review at a later time, and we'll send out that link to everybody via email. So if you're interested in learning more about the custom solutions from Resolve and Orion, please fill out the pop-up survey at the end of this video webinar. And please don't hesitate to ask myself or any of your business development representatives on how we can help you. And also watch for more upcoming opportunities to learn about Orion's Nebula partners. So it's been a great hour, and I hope all of you have a fantastic afternoon. And on behalf of Orion, thanks again to all of you. Take care.